Welcome to the channel, everybody. Today we're diving into a topic that's a little uncomfortable, but hey, that's kind of my thing, right? We're talking about the top 10 countries where being black can feel like you're walking on eggshells. And not the fun kind you get at Easter. It's about acknowledging that even in 2023, racism is alive and well. And in some places, it's just more obvious. We're relying on reports, surveys, and sadly the lived experiences of black people who faced some real challenges. So buckle up, because we're about to take a trip around the world, highlighting the good, the bad, and the just plain ugly when it comes to the black experience in these 10 countries. And don't forget to like this video to support Africarized in creating great content. Your support means the world to us. First up, we're heading east to the largest country on Earth, Russia. Now, Russia has a complicated history. I mean, whose doesn't? But when it comes to race relations, let's just say there's room for improvement. We're talking about a place where xenophobia, which is just a fancy word for fear of anyone who's not from around here, is a real issue. Add to that a sprinkle of far-right extremism, and you've got a recipe for some, shall we say, unwelcoming vibes for black people. Reports of discrimination and even violence against black individuals, especially those from African countries, are sadly not uncommon. The good news is there are organizations and individuals working hard to combat racism and promote understanding. But there's still a long way to go before Russia sheds its reputation as a place where being black can feel like a liability. Next, we travel to Ukraine, a country grappling with its own set of challenges, including a, let's say, tense relationship with its neighbor, Russia. But even before the current conflict, Ukraine had its own issues with racial discrimination. Like Russia, far-right groups and nationalist sentiments have unfortunately found fertile ground in Ukraine. Black individuals, particularly students from Africa, have reported facing everything from verbal harassment to physical violence. Now, it's crucial to remember that Ukraine is a country in flux, and many Ukrainians are incredibly welcoming and open-minded. The hope is that as Ukraine continues to forge its own path, it will prioritize inclusivity and equality, ensuring that everyone, regardless of their background, can thrive. From Ukraine, we move westward to Poland, a country known for its beautiful architecture, delicious pierogies, and sadly a growing trend of nationalism and xenophobia. Now, Poland hasn't historically been the most diverse place, but in recent years the rise of nationalist sentiments has created a climate that's increasingly hostile towards anyone perceived as an outsider, especially black people. Black individuals have reported facing discrimination in housing, employment, and even healthcare. You know, the essentials. The Polish government has faced criticism from international organizations for not doing enough to address these issues. And look, I get it, every country has its problems. But sweeping racism under the rug doesn't make it disappear, it just makes it harder to clean up later. Poland, you've come a long way. Don't let prejudice drag you back down. Next up, we journey to Hungary, a country famous for its thermal baths, its goulash, and increasingly its government's hardline stance on immigration. Now, Hungary, like many countries in Eastern Europe, is relatively homogeneous. But in recent years, the government has actively stoked fears about immigrants and refugees, often painting them as a threat to Hungarian culture and identity. And guess who often gets caught in the crosshairs of this rhetoric? You guessed it, black people. This anti-immigrant sentiment has created a climate where discrimination against black individuals, particularly those from African countries, is sadly becoming more common. We're talking everything from verbal harassment to being denied service in shops and restaurants. Look, I understand the desire to preserve one's culture, but real strength lies in embracing diversity, not in shutting it out. Hungary, it's time to ditch the fear-mongering and embrace the beauty of a more inclusive society. From Hungary, we head south to Italy, a country known for its delicious food, its passionate people, and its complicated relationship with race. Now, Italy is often seen as a land of beauty and romance. But beneath the surface lies a current of racial prejudice that can be difficult to ignore, especially for black individuals. In recent years, there have been numerous reports of discrimination and even violence against black people in Italy. This is often fueled by anti-immigrant sentiment, particularly towards those arriving from African countries. The rise of far-right groups has also contributed to this climate of intolerance. Italy, you've given the world so much, from art to fashion to food. Now it's time to add inclusivity to that list and work towards a future where everyone feels welcome and respected. From Italy, we hop over to Greece, the birthplace of democracy and philosophy. But even in a land with such a rich history, contemporary realities can sometimes clash with those lofty ideals, especially when it comes to race relations. Greece has been on the front lines of the refugee crisis, with many people fleeing conflict and poverty arriving on its shores. And while many Greeks have shown incredible compassion and generosity, there's also been a rise in anti-immigrant sentiment, which often translates into discrimination against black individuals. We're talking about everything from verbal harassment to physical violence, particularly in areas with large immigrant populations. The Greek government has faced criticism for its handling of the refugee crisis and its treatment of migrants. Look, I know dealing with a large influx of people is challenging, but it's important to remember that behind the labels of migrant and refugee are human beings simply seeking a better life. Greece, you've given the world so much. Don't let fear and prejudice tarnish your legacy. From Europe, we journey eastward to India, a land of vibrant colors, rich culture, and a deeply ingrained system of social hierarchy. Now, India's history with race and caste is complex, to say the least. But even within this intricate social fabric, black individuals, particularly those from African countries, often find themselves facing discrimination and prejudice. In India, there's a specific term for it, Afrophobia. Black people in India have reported facing everything from being denied housing to being stared at and ridiculed in public. It's like, India, come on. You gave the world yoga and meditation. Can't we all just chill out and learn to appreciate each other's differences? The Indian government has taken some steps to address these issues, but there's still a long way to go before black individuals feel truly accepted and integrated into Indian society. Next, we travel to China, the world's most populous country and an emerging global superpower. But even with its economic might, China still has some work to do when it comes to racial equality. In recent years, China has faced increasing criticism for its treatment of black individuals, particularly those from African countries. From discrimination in housing and employment to racial profiling by authorities, being black in China can sometimes feel like being under a microscope, except the lens is smeared with prejudice. And then there's the whole COVID-19 situation. Remember those videos of black people being evicted from their homes and denied service at restaurants in China at the start of the pandemic? Yeah, not a good look, China. Look, I get it, China. You've got a lot going on. But as a global leader, you have a responsibility to set an example. It's time to address these issues head-on and create a more inclusive society for everyone. From China, we head east to Japan, a country known for its technological prowess, its unique culture, and its homogeneity. Now, Japan has long prided itself on its cultural uniformity. But this emphasis on conformity can sometimes come at a cost, particularly for those who don't quite fit the mold, like, say, black individuals. We're talking about a society where standing out is often seen as a negative thing. This can lead to feelings of isolation, exclusion, and even outright discrimination. Black individuals have reported facing everything from being denied apartments to being passed over for jobs, all because of their race. But it's time for Japan to realize that diversity is not a threat to its identity. It's an opportunity for growth and enrichment. Finally, we arrive in South Korea, the land of K-pop, kimchi, and a growing awareness of racial issues. South Korea, like its neighbor Japan, has a history of homogeneity. But with the rise of globalization and K-pop taking over the world, South Korea is becoming increasingly multicultural, which, let's be honest, is probably way more exciting than just staring at each other's identical haircuts. However, old habits die hard. Black individuals in South Korea often find themselves facing subtle forms of discrimination, from microaggressions to being treated like curiosities rather than individuals. The good news is, there's a growing movement within South Korea to address these issues and promote inclusivity. Young people in particular are challenging traditional norms and embracing diversity. So South Korea, keep up the good work. You've already won over the world with your music and your food. Now let's show them what a truly inclusive and welcoming society looks like. And there you have it, folks. Our whirlwind tour of 10 countries where being black can sometimes feel like an extreme sport. Remember, this isn't about pointing fingers or saying these countries are all bad. It's about starting a conversation, shining a light on uncomfortable truths, and hopefully inspiring change. The reality is racism exists everywhere in some form or another. But by acknowledging it, by talking about it, and by challenging it, we can create a more just and equitable world for everyone.